to play Detective City of Angels. This is obviously a detective game, and you're trying to solve different murders that occur in LA. So let's move on to quality of pieces. So you have obviously your basic standard cubes, some wooden pieces. But the really cool hat is I love the little hats that they give you to track influence among the different suspects, as well as the what was your role called?
The chisel.
The chisel. So
the chisel is kind of the DM of the game, and you still play a role in the game as far as trying to manipulate, and you can still win the game, but you're mostly focused on trying to make sure the game continues moving on and smoothly. And then you have these little miniatures that represent each of the players, and I thought those were really cool looking. And, they nice touch to them. Yeah,
pretty nifty. So then they also had cardboard money.
Yeah, the cardboard wasn't great. It felt like Kickstarter style money as far as cardboard.
But the detail on the print was actually pretty cool.
They look nice, and they're glossy, but they didn't tear when you punched them out, which unfortunately we had a problem with that with Stardew Valley, which we'll talk about in that review. But as far as these components, I mean, they're not bad for being the Kickstarter style look to them. The board
but
is
I definitely think I do think there's a lot of aspects that aren't just Kickstarter-esque. I mean, you've got the miniatures, you've got the hats. I mean, yeah, there's some things that they didn't quite hit, like top-notch quality, but I think they did all right. How were the cards, though?
The cards are pretty common. They're thin, and they do have a little bit of texture to the back of them, but they're not great. Okay. I mean, you're probably going to, I would say you were going to sleeve them, but then again, this game is only played, there's like 9 sets in it, and you're going to eventually stop playing it once you play the scenario. This is not a game that you'll be able to play indefinitely.
No, but it'd be a great game to play and then hand off to someone else.
Yeah.
So give it a score, guys, for quality of pieces.
I think a 7.
Yeah, if it weren't for the miniatures, I'd probably go 6, but the miniatures are really nice.
Yeah.
And they did screen print the wood, which is, I'm not sure what they screen printed on the wood.
We don't know what that little symbol is.
No clue. I mean, it looks. Is it a candle?
No, it kind of looks like a principality building or something.
Yeah.
Like maybe downtown
okay.
LA or something.
I mean, honestly, I thought it was one of those old fossils.
I thought it was a troglodyte. Yeah, same thing I thought. That's what I said. I thought it was a troglodyte. So I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but it's supposed to represent in the game that you have knowledge. So I don't understand how that's knowledge unless it's your brain and the brainstem, maybe? I don't know.
It's very loose.
Very techno version of it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being a building, though. I totally get that piece. All right, so...
I'll give it a 7. I think 7's good for this.
Yeah, I think the miniatures tip it over to a 7. I do think there's some pieces that are really cool in this, but not everything hit the mark. So I'm fine with the 7. So moving on to theme. I mean, detectives. I mean, who doesn't love playing a good detective? Does this game entrench you in that
I
field?
think it
Absolutely.
does. I think the theme is where this game really shined. It's you get the feel of, not only does it feel like detective, but it feels like you're in like the 1940s, 30s. In gumshoe detectives in a sleazy part of Los Angeles,
like crime noir.
Yes,
is what it feels like.
And I mean they've got the dialogue in the books is very reminiscent of that era of the films. And if you look at
you can hear Cagney Lacey.
Yeah. And they even did it's not real well developed, but they created
a little bit of the intro
on the app where you could, well, not an app, but it's actually go into their website and play, and it'll read through the opening dialogue, and they've got some noir music.
And it felt like that too.
Yeah. So I thought they did a great job with theme on this game. I like the board. It's reminiscent of Los Angeles, and it's got the map.
I wasn't alive during that time of LA, but I want to assume it looked like that back then.
I mean, they don't have the Hollywood lettering when that's the one complaint, but I think that is actually because I think it's trademarked. I don't think you're allowed to do that. So I mean, I thought the map was cool. It's got I like the fact that there's a big coffee mug on it, for when the case gets cold.
Right.
It's down there. I thought that was cool. I just love everything about how this game feels.
And some of the mechanics make it feel like that way too, which we'll talk about during gameplay.
All right, give it a score.
I'm going to give this one a 9. I think they've done a great job of capturing the feel of that era of detective.
I think they did a great job as well. I don't think I was as immersed as you were, Randy, but I'm going to give it an 8. It's still solid. Really, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it.
I'm kind of. I don't think I'm high as either one of you, but at the same time, I was kind of tired. So I don't know how much I mean, the dialogue was good. Everything. I mean, I'll go with your 8. That's fine. So, I mean, there was a lot of good pieces about it, and it did well.
The dialogue and the cards were really fun.
Yeah. I think that was really cool.
And I like the way this works, and which we'll get to in the gameplay. But the roles of the different the messages they have, you get to choose. The chisel gets to choose which one, and there were a lot of humor in those.
Right.
So, all right. Moving on to rules. So each player had their own little guide. As well as the actual rule book.
Yeah. So
I thought this was actually pretty cool because you got your starting intro, so that way no one has to share it. Thank goodness, because we would have been fighting over that thing. So the whole game. So that I thought was a huge boon.
Yeah. That's cool.
As being the player to have all that stuff, and then on the back page there is this little synopsis for the things that you're supposed to do. So again, another good thing. As well as the player boards themselves, it really walked you through, gave your special actions. So, and then you had a sheet to actually write on. So all of those things, as far as the player is concerned, that we would kind of go with rules, I think they did a top-notch job on.
Well,
the player aids were great.
Not only that, with the rule book, they gave you a tutorial book and a rule book. And I didn't use a tutorial book, but you could easily take this and just run with it. You can. It steps you through the actions to take on each turn. So you could just play we played just basically the first case, which is basically an introductory case. It's not a full-fledged case, and it's more designed to walk you through this tutorial. So you can play that whole case using just the tutorial without ever reading the rule book to learn how to play. It does recommend, if you're playing the chisel, that you have read the rule book, because the chisel's role is, as we get into here in the gameplay, is kind of to moderate and keep the game going. And if you don't read that and know how you're doing it, then it would be problematic. But they tried to make this as easy for new people to get into the game as possible, and maybe a little bit to the detriment of our scores today, just because the fact all we did play was the demo. It's not a full game.
No, it was plenty full enough for me. So, all right, give it a score.
I'm going to give the score for the rules probably a 8. Well, maybe a 9 even, because they really did go out of their way to.
I think so.
This.
Yeah. I mean, it's very accessible.
I mean, the rules were not complex at all, and they went out of their way to make it easy to find what you were looking for in it. It is. I mean, there's a lot of detail. The print's a little small. But it's real concise rules to get you into the game quickly. They got the tutorial. They got cheat sheets, cheat booklets for everyone. I mean, they really couldn't have done much more to teach you how to play this game. So I think a 9 is probably best.
I think so too.
I absolutely agree. The player aids alone, as far as I'm concerned, let you jump into the game. All right. So moving on to gameplay. So they're really.
So first of all, we don't want to give any spoilers away, because there are only, I think, 9 cases in the box, and this is case 1. We are not going to talk about any of the details of that case.
Absolutely not. So, but there are 2 roles, right? There's the chisel and the actual players, the detectives. And so basically, on your board, you have 4 cubes to show your 4 action items. But then it also lists out the different actions you take. So you move a cube to the action that you're taking, and then that's the action you take. So I think that's absolutely great when you're starting to learn how to play. That way you can keep track of everything. That way you're not overstepping. And then over here on the side, there are things that you can do with the money that you can get. So overall, it was super easy to jump in and play. Although I think the confusing part was trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with these clues and how do I move forward? So it wasn't, I don't think, the mechanics of the game that were for me, the frustrating thing was like, okay, what do I do with this clue? Because I remember the first clue I got was so vague. I didn't really know. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? And so I think for me, it was kind of that barrier of, okay, and honestly, I was probably the least person close to figuring out who done it in this game. Because I
was pretty far out there too. I wasn't able to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I found most eventually, as towards the end of the game, I discovered what everybody else discovered, but I don't think I got everything because Caleb got a couple clues that I didn't get. But what the clues I did get, I was not able to connect those dots.
Yeah, like I mean, I saw little glimpses, like one or two like things that connected, but then like I didn't see how this small piece fit that small piece to fit that small piece, and honestly, I had almost no clue. I think I was like, oh, I bet you this was the answer, but then I didn't have any reasons why I thought that was the answer at all. And it turns out that answer was right, but that still wasn't I did not feel secure in my knowledge. I mean, let me put it this way. So I think for me, that was the frustrating part, is because in some of the other deductive games, it's very clear, this is a clue, this is where you mark it off your box, where this is a way more speculative and real life in trying to piece those pieces together.
My problem, not a problem, it's part of the game, and Randy will go in more detail about his role in the game, but it's just when you go and ask questions, you don't know if you're getting a good clue or if you're getting a lie. And so I always questioned everything I found out. Is this right, or is this wrong, or is this important, is this not important? I had no idea. And I didn't have any idea on how to figure out if it was important or not. But that's more related to Chisel, and I'll let Randy talk about that because that's what he did.
So first of all, going through the actions, you get 4 actions, and one of which is to move on the board. Movement's super easy on the board. You move anywhere in the sector you're in. The board is divided into multiple sectors. You go to any space in that for 1 action. If you want to move to a different sector, you have to go to a space that's on the perimeter of the sector you're in to move into the next sector. So you can pretty much get anywhere on the board you want within 3 actions max. So that's super easy on the movement, but it is going to take up a good chunk of 1 turn.
Yeah, what about the chisel though?
I want to go through the actions, then I'll go through the chisel. Then, all right. So then, the question, as we brought up, is another option. That's where you can interrogate one of the suspects, and that's where you get asked questions. That's where the chisel can interact most. There's also search location, search suspect. You can do either of those actions to find out information. They give you a deck of cards as the chisel to give information back to the players based upon the numbers on the board that they go to. There's analyze and kickback, which are ways to make money if you're running short on money. And that's basically $1 for just wasting a turn.
For thinking about whatever you want to think about.
Or the number of players in the game in money if you are sleazy and decide to take bribes from the local...
Guess what? Everyone's
we all did it.
sleazy, okay?
We all did it.
Listen, when you a broke cop, you do things that you don't think
So
you
I thought
do.
that was a lot of fun too. It was, all the cops or all the detectives are on the take too. I thought that was fun.
See, I love the fact there was no penalty from getting the kickback.
Yeah.
So it was like, I am totally a horrible cop.
I think that was just a part of life.
Yeah.
And so back then.
Yeah.
So.
I thought that was a fun touch. So
that was
as far as the chisel's role, I said there's twofold. One is the chisel's main goal is to try to facilitate the game. So as the chisel, you don't have a place on the board. You are just giving the responses of all the suspects. So you have a cross-reference sheet that says if they ask from this person about this person or item, you can give any of these responses, one of which is the optimal response. Those optimal responses may not be useful They may not be great, but there's an optimal response. And then there's ones that are, in essence, lies, although they're not truly lies in some cases. It's just less useful information. So you, as the chisel, can decide which of those responses you are willing to give. So you can choose, and they're highlighted. The right answer is black. The wrong answers, or the less useful information, is red. So it's very clear which ones are right and wrong. And you get to decide which way you're going to go. You offer that information face down to the player.
We don't see the red or black, okay?
They don't get to see whether it's right or wrong. They have to decide whether you're bluffing or not.
Without seeing the clue.
Right.
Which is what made it hard.
Right.
So you really got to know who you're, whatever, and figure out if they're lying or not. And
in the meantime, all the other players can decide if they want to bribe the snitch and be able to see the same information as the person who's getting that card. So they all choose whether to pay $3 to the bank in order to look at the card or not. So money is really useful in this game for all the different interactions, because you can bribe each other, you can bribe the detectives, you can bribe the snitches. It's a lot of fun. You can bribe the police. You can go to the police station and bribe police. So there's a lot of ways to use money in this game, and they're all corrupt, which is awesome. But the snitch, it has to be selective on when he's going to bribe or not, because if they call your bluff on it, then they get to have an influence on the suspect that they're interrogating, and so therefore they'll get more honest information from that point forward. Whereas if you gave them an honest answer and they called your bluff, you get more influence on that detective, which you can use to block their questioning and the lines of questioning in the future. So I thought that was a neat dynamic. I don't think it was fully explored as well as it could have been. It felt like it was more beneficial to challenge every time and just pay the penalty.
Right.
I wish it was a little steeper of a penalty.
It really wasn't that hard to, you're lying, or no, it didn't really matter one way or the other.
well, the thing is,
as long as you had kept a little bit of money, you had an easy out.
Yeah, because it was too easy to make money, I felt. I mean, I like the mechanic. I love that mechanic. It's just, I think
it would be different with the number of players, because you got to realize the kickback is with the number of players. So if you're only playing with, 2 or 3 players, then that's really going to shorten what you're able to get out of that, versus where we had so many players.
It was frustrating as the chisel, because it was like there's so many there were so many funny responses that I wanted to give.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I give it and they challenge me, it's gonna take a lot of the fun out of this thing. So I was very sparsely, sneaking those in. I threw one in on you early on in the game to send you on a red herring, but there wasn't a whole lot of interaction that it resulted in, unfortunately. But I still think it's a neat mechanic. I just think it would have been better if the money with penalty was
it might
steeper.
flush out even more with the harder cases.
Yeah, I hope so. Hopeful.
All right. So who designed it, Robert?
So this is Detective City of Angels, Board Game Geek rating of 8.0. It's a pretty good score. Designer is Evan Derrick. The artist is Vincent Dutrait. Published by Manwriter Games. A little pricey, MSRP of $90.
Yeah, it was a steep one. I mean, this is one of my Gen Con chase downs. The year it came out, I went to Gen Con to go, and it was on my list to get, but this was in the very back booth of the very corner of the floor
of the hall.
And when I got down there, by the time I got to it, they had already sold everything out. And then I came back each day and checked in the morning, and by the end of the Gen Con, I was able to get the base game.
And there is one expansion.
There's an expansion that came out that's Bullets Over Broadway, and that one I missed out on, and it wasn't available for order. It wasn't out there anywhere. And then I went to my brother's wedding in Chicago just a few months ago, and they had it at a game store there, and I picked it up. Then it got re-released, I think. And I was like, darn it, I paid a premium for both the game and the expansion when I could have got them cheaper. But
you get a lot of game, because there's, like we said, there's like 9 cases. So I mean, you're looking at $10 a case, and if you get 2 or 3 hours out of each one, it's well worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a neat concept. I think they could have fleshed out a little better, but I still think it's a lot of fun. It's certainly with the right crowd.
Right. But if you like the unlock games, or if you like the escape room type games, you'd love this game. If you like puzzle games, you're gonna like this game because it's definitely a puzzler. So I think it hit a wide group of people. I think a lot of different people.
So give it a score, guys.
I think it's a solid game. I think I'd give it 7.5. I like it.
I'm going to give it a little higher. I like, because partly it's because I love mysteries. And this is the type of game I really enjoy. I wish it would have been a little bit better fleshed out. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8 because of my love of mysteries. And I think this hits the same kind of spot that Forbidden Waters hit for me as far as for the pirate theme. It doesn't quite do it as well as what Forbidden Waters does for the pirate theme, but I thought this was the same type of feeling that gave.
I'm going to give it a 7. My biggest frustration is the clues were so indecisive, and you didn't like you had this sheet to write down clues, but you weren't really sure what you were writing or what that meant. And I think as a player, that was a little frustrating for me because I'm like, I don't really know how all the pieces fit, and I still didn't even at the end of the game. So as much as it is as a puzzler, I don't know. I just found it frustrating, but I do think there were a lot of good, solid elements in it, and so to discredit those, I think wouldn't be fair. So
I don't think this is designed to be played like a game, like we played the Awkward Guess.
Yeah,
it's not designed like that. This is designed to be like one of my murder mysteries, where you write down clues, you don't know if they're fully honest or not, and you try to figure out the story. It's more around just trying to piece the story together as opposed to...
It's definitely more abstract. It's not as direct.
Yeah, and maybe,
But I think that maybe the other cases might help us appreciate it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because... I can see some of the longer cases, and I think you also have to be in a mood for this kind of game as well. So I think you have to be, prepared to be more story oriented versus, okay, let's win a game, right? And so knowing that when you choose it, because if I'm wanting something that's more,
this is more RPG-ish.
In
nature.
And so for those that and I have to be in the mood for a good RPG. So there's that piece of it. So that may be why.
And during the reading through the Chisel's rules, it said there's basically 2 ways to play as the Chisel. One is to be the conscientious DM who's trying to make the game interesting for people and keeping it fun. And then the other is the hardened, I'm going to try to win this game at all costs. And it said, if you play the second way, then there's a good chance that people are going to be frustrated and not enjoy the game as much. So I tried to do a melding of the two. I didn't go out trying to cause this to fail. I wanted the story to move forward. So I was trying to pass information that kept the story moving without making it totally confusing for players, but still interjecting that from time to time. So I think I would prefer it that way too, because I think, especially the first time we play, if you get somebody in there that's just trying to sabotage, albeit I don't know how you could sabotage the first story enough to make it, there just wasn't enough opportunity. But
I still had no clue about anything by the end of it, so I don't know.
But I do think that this is a game. You asked me at the beginning of the game, is this, are you going to care if you lose or whatever? And I'm like, I don't think so in this case. This isn't a game that I'm out to win. This is a game I'm out to enjoy.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had a lot of fun tonight, so hopefully you would like to join us again. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. We'd love to hang out. Thank you, guys.
Oh, wait. Well, one more point. There is a lot of risque language in this game.
Yeah.
It says 14 and up on it. That's a strong 14 and up. I would not go under. There's a lot of dialogue that is probably period correct, but especially if you're in the seedy part of town, but it's not something you're going to want your little kids exposed to.
Yeah, parents only night, tonight.
Right. So,
but good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call out.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.